My name is Kimberly Baird, and I'm the first assistant Commonwealth attorney. I was born and raised here in Lexington, probably one of the few that has. I went to the University of Kentucky and also the University of Kentucky College of Law, where I graduated in 1996. I started as an intern here in January of 1996, and I've been here ever since. I became the first assistant in 2016 when my boss was appointed to fill the remainder of Ray Larson's term. My caseload consists primarily of cases where children are victims, sexual and physical assault, as well as other major cases here in the office. I also am a co-facilitator for the multidisciplinary team that investigates those cases involving children. And I also am a trainer for the police here and also Department of Criminal Justice Training in Richmond. I have sort of two groups that are part of my influences and inspirations. One of them is very specific, and it's Thurgood Marshall. I have always had a respect and an admiration for him. I remember when I was a young teenager and I went to a conference in DC with my mother, and I remember going to the U.S. Supreme Court because I thought that was going to be my workplace one day. And I remember asking the tour person why his chair was smaller than everybody else's. And it was only because they were renovating and he decided to keep his chair. But I remember being defensive of him then and wanting to make sure he was protected back then. And so anytime anybody asks who my influences are, I immediately go to him. Always have a warm, fuzzy grandfather feeling for him. So he's definitely one of my influences. Another influence and inspiration I have, it's really kind of a group of people. And everybody that has lifted me up over the years, who has given me a kind word or inspired me, particularly in college, law school, and here, have helped me continue to just go. This is a very tough job, an often thankless job. But sometimes when you have people that just keep encouraging you, sometimes victims that tell you thank you, and even defendants who have stopped me in the store who wanted to tell me how their life has changed after I've prosecuted them, it gives me that little bit of extra. And so despite the fact that I threaten to quit on a regular basis, when I get that inspiration and I get that encouragement, it continues to keep me going. And I want to continue to do good for the community. I think Black history is important for two reasons. Number one, I think in order to thrive, to prosper, to advance as a society, you have to know the shoulders on which you stood. In American history, people of color are often left out of the discussion. And despite the achievements and advancements that African Americans have made. In school, you don't get to opt out of American history. You don't get to opt out of world history. It's a year-long class. And so I think it's ridiculous to think that all people shouldn't have to learn about Black history. I also think it's important for self-esteem. A lot of times when you ask people, who do you think is successful? Who do you think is beautiful? Who do you think achieves? A lot of times that picture, that person is not a person of color. So for a young Black person growing up, you often think when you're looking at the images and what you're seeing as white America, you think you're not good enough. You think you're not as pretty. You think you're not as successful. But I think Black history and letting people know that we are just as equal and just as successful and just as beautiful helps the self-esteem of those growing up to think that they can achieve anything.